Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. Very quickly, before we get into this weapon review, I do want to let you know this video is not sponsored, but in the description below, you're going to find a link. I am doing a sponsored stream on Wednesday. This coming Wednesday over on my Twitch. I'll have it here. I'll have it in the description. But if you guys would like to help me out, there's going to be a link in the description where you guys can play AFK Journey. I have an upcoming move that I'm going to be doing at the end of this month, and I'm really hoping this sponsorship can help cover some of those costs. If you can download the game, give it a try, I would massively appreciate it. Any time you can contribute to that is an absolute win. And, please and thank you. If not, hey, totally understand. But please come check out the stream on Wednesday over again at my Twitch, twitch.tv/nightmarecv. Getting into the meat and potatoes of today's video, we are going to be going over Speleologist, which is the new machine gun that came out in Act 3. I was cautiously optimistic about this machine gun. I like machine guns a lot, and in the past, when it came to things like 21% Delirium, I was a huge fan of the rapid fire frame. That frame is less than ideal these days. Not really anybody's first pick. Bungie has tried to bring the frame back, tried to do some interesting things with it. It's never really added up, with the exception of the Void one, which I'm now double checking, Retrofit Escapade, which came out in Season of the Seraph. That one was kind of a success. Target lock was still a relatively new perk. It was a machine gun that could take advantage of it. And that was an interesting combo at that particular point in time. A lot has happened. Machine guns have gotten buffed since that time, but it tends to be the precision frames, the aggressive frames, the aggressive frame. There's only one right now in Pro Memoria. I am hoping there will be more soon, and I really actually wish this machine gun had been an aggressive frame, because that could have been very interesting and really could set this weapon up to be a lot more usable. Not that it isn't. We're going to get into that. I'm just saying it would have been really interesting to add to that repertoire of that frame. To its credit, there are only a handful of solar machine guns really in the game. Only 2 are in the 900 archetype. One of them was recently unsunset, if I'm remembering correctly. It used to be a ritual weapon. And I don't think there are any other. I really should have done this research beforehand. That's on me. But I do know that the common ones right now are the Avalanche, which is a 450, and that comes around during the Dawning. And the other one is the Trials machine gun. I believe it is Unwavering Duty is the other one. Yes, Unwavering Duty, which is still available to focus at Saint 14 if you dare enter that playlist. But again, those are both precision frame machine guns, and I really don't think either of them is the best option for a machine gun of that archetype. I think you have so many other options like Hammerhead, like Song of Your Ute, things like that, which I believe are better frame. Commemoration, Void and Arc, kind of, those are the good ones right now. And you know what? I actually think the Neomuna machine gun is pretty good as well. So I don't think either of those solar options is something I would go out of my way to say, yeah, I want to use this over these other machine guns. But with the 900 frame, again, there's really only one popular option right now in the Retrofit Escapade. And, now that 21% Delirium is unsunset, that is an option, though not having an origin trait creates a situation of, could it be better? Does it still hold up? I still think it holds up. But this machine gun kind of gives it a run for its money in a lot of ways. Getting into the nitty gritty right now, for perks, my recommendation is always, when it comes to these rapid firing weapons, these things that are the bullet hoses, as you were, these crave stability. And it is my recommendation to anybody who is crafting this to go into stability with the barrel. That is not necessarily, I know sometimes we talk about them interchangeably between stability and recoil direction. Arrowhead break is not necessary for this weapon. I would in fact advise against arrowhead break. And the reason being for that is outside of a brief pull to the right when you first begin. My cats are meowing for dinner time. Outside of a strong pull to the right, when you initially start firing this weapon, it's mostly vertical, even at its default 58 recoil direction. And part of that is because of deterministic recoil. It really holds firm, and only at the very end of the magazine. This particular one that I'm showing does have extended magazine. That is my recommendation for the magazine. With these 900s, you want those mags as deep as possible because you want to get that damage out, sustain it as long as possible. That's what makes these more effective, in my opinion. When it gets to the tail end of that, you will see it start to trail to the right again, but there's a good 80 to 90 rounds in there that are just vertical. And when you get past that first kick, it's a joy to fire. The weapon, the more I used it, the more I realized, like, kind of got past that initial kick. Like, when you're bullet hosing this weapon, it feels really good. And I was surprised by that. I wasn't expecting to enjoy it as much as I was. Just the actual feel of using the gun, I was shocked. And especially when it comes to, losing out on some added stability from other perks like flared magwell or from tactical mag, things like that. I didn't miss those in this particular machine gun, where in almost any other machine gun, I want to focus on stability and, some recoil direction, especially when it comes to like precisions, aggressives. You want to kind of fine tune that. When it comes to the rapid fires, they're a little weird. They require a little special touch. So you got to be really careful, because you could take something that looks bad and it ends up being really good, or you could take something that's already good and you could ruin it. And you can make it a mess that fires all over. We don't want to do that. So my recommendations: polygonal rifling for the barrel, and extended mag for the magazine. If you wanted to double down on the stability, I wouldn't blame you for going steady rounds. Flared magwell, probably not the choice I would make, because reload speed is not what you're focused on with this weapon, especially if you're emptying the magazine. The rapid fire frame intrinsic trait is that it reloads faster on an empty magazine. So you're kind of already getting that if you are using this to its fullest effect. Otherwise, Accurize isn't going to really move the needle for you. At its base range of 46.6 meters, adding Accurized rounds does not even bring it to 47. It brings it to 46.96. So it's a very minimal improvement. You don't want to force any range onto this weapon. It is not going to help you. Please take my word for it. It's not going to move the needle the way you think it's going to. When we get to the third and fourth columns, there are some interesting options. However, I'm really only going to highlight two in the third column. Some honorable mentions here: enlightened action, adding handling, but again, reload speed, not super important for this weapon. Stats for all can be good on a machine gun like this and could be kind of a sleeper third pick, not the direction I want to go. Firmly planted is going to require you to be crouched, which in a lot of circumstances where you need to be clearing ads as quickly as possible, you don't want to lose that mobility. It's one thing if you're firing a precision weapon from a safe distance, but when it comes to a machine gun like this, I would never recommend that type of playstyle. Deconstruct. Don't be fooled by the refill of the magazine. There are better ways to do this with other perks, and until Bungie either undoes or alters some of the adjustments they've made to deconstruct, I wouldn't recommend that perk on almost anything right now. The two perks you're going to be looking at are going to be Envious Assassin and Slideways. And before I forget, heal clip is not an option on this gun. Nobody is using heal clip on a machine gun. That is a false positive. That is a red flag. If someone joins your fire team and they're running heal clip on their Speleologist, watch them closely, because something's not right there. When it comes to Slideways and Envious, they are both adding sustainability to the weapon and its ability to remain effective. They're accomplishing it in different ways. Envious Assassin is straightforward and in some ways is my preferred option. Defeating targets with other weapons before drawing this one transfers ammo from the reserves to the magazine. So you can overflow the magazine of this weapon, which again, why I went with extended mag and why I run a backup mag on it is because I want to maximize that magazine, get it to the 114 and then overflow from there. I believe it rests at about 234 rounds, if I remember correctly. It's a lot. And when you combine it with the fourth column option that I recommend, which we'll get into that in a second, it's very effective. It's going to clear rooms. It's going to accomplish everything you need it to do. And then you can put it away and start that cycle again, especially with a weapon like Choir of One, which I've been running since I got it. I love that thing. That has been so good for overflowing this magazine because it can dish out a lot of damage, get a lot of kills very quickly, and then you pull out the Speleologist, and it is ready to roll. Slideways is a different way of getting there while also benefiting the weapon in tangible ways. So Slideways is going to reload 15% of the magazine when you slide. There is a cooldown of about 3 seconds, if I remember correctly, between uses. So you can't just keep sliding and reloading the magazine. That is something you have to be aware of when you're doing this. It's not like Envious where you're just going to be able to bullet hose, keep firing, never stop. You can't do that with Slideways. You have to be a little more selective about your targets. You have to be a little more nitpicky about how you're choosing to take fights. And I have footage of both of those kinds of play styles in this video, so you can kind of judge for yourself which one you would prefer. The added benefit of Slideways is that it's going to give stability, 15 stability, and 30 handling for that 3 seconds. So your weapon's going to feel a little bit better during that slide. And when it comes off of cooldown, when those buffs end, you can slide again to reactivate them. So there's consistent uptime with that. There's an easy path to semi-permanent buffs to your weapon while also reloading it. You're not going to get the same uptime with Slideways compared to Envious, but for a more active playstyle where maybe you're swapping between weapons more often, that could be a big benefit. It's really going to come down to how you utilize your fourth column. There are interesting options here. Target lock, which was very popular on the retrofit. Machine guns are not really DPS weapons despite the damage buffs they've received, and target lock is another one of those kind of false positives. The amount you would have to hit, the depth into the mag you would have to get to make that viable, you can do better with, say, a Choir of One. You can just deal that damage faster with other weapons. And it's hard to recommend target lock at this point on a machine gun, even one that fires as fast. I used to have target lock on some of my other machine guns. I've since taken it off because I'm looking for more. If I'm doing a damage buff, I want something more immediate that is going to contribute both at the top of the mag as much as it does at the bottom. I don't want to have that time in between where I'm waiting for that to really kick in. So target lock, not really my recommendation. There is always the tried and true stats for all, one for all, or Slideways one for all could actually be an interesting combo here. 35% damage buff. It almost doesn't get better than that. And that's a ton of damage for this weapon to be doing. I think that's a great combination for most players, and that could be one way that you make the most of this gun. I also really like Adagio as an option on this weapon because you are getting that 30% increase in damage just for getting a kill. So it's arguably, depending on the circumstances, sometimes arguably easier to proc Adagio. You get that for 7 seconds. And you also get 10 extra range, which again, not going to do much for you in this circumstance, but it's free stats for getting the damage buff. The downside is you're going to reduce the fire rate of the weapon. The advantage there being that you are already using a high RPM machine gun. So by taking that down, you're not really hurting yourself as much as you could with other archetypes. Taking a 450 down to a much slower archetype by 20% is going to be a noticeable impact. Going from from 900 to 700-ish, it's going to feel like an auto rifle. So it's not a huge difference. It's manageable. Again, you're balancing that against the usability of One for All at that maximum RPM versus the ease of activation. And when it comes down to it, if you're using this machine gun to clear ads, you're going to be proccing one or the other. And so it kind of doesn't matter which way you go. Incandescent is always, as always, a popular solar perk. Applying Scorch, being able to spread that across the battlefield is really cool. I don't want Incandescent on my heavy weapon because the one thing Incandescent is not going to help you with is if you're fighting bigger ads, if you're fighting orange bars or yellow bars. Yes, you'll still get that tick damage if you kill a smaller ad near them. But in situations where you need to rely on your heavy to quickly deal with a dangerous enemy that is pushing you, that is readily available, and you're low on special or you're saving it for something else, Incandescent does not help you kill that enemy. And with the speed at which a machine gun is already clearing ads, how much more is that Scorch really doing for you? Especially when you have the origin trait, Radiolaria Transposer, which I love on this gun. It's already accomplishing some of that by making targets explode and form that pool of Radiolaria fluid. You're getting some of that effect without having to burn the perk, no pun intended, on Incandescent. It's a give and take. If you really want that to synergize with your solar build, I get it. But for anybody outside of that, I would really advise against Incandescent. Personally, one of my favorite perks on any machine gun is Killing Tally. Because again, machine guns are very good at killing ads. Having a permanent up to 30% damage buff just for getting 3 kills, doing the One for All thing, you're probably killing those ads anyway if you're using One for All. It's 30%, but it's forever until you stow or reload the weapon. If you are running Killing Tally. As much as Slideways seems like a great option to kind of keep that going forever, I actually prefer Envious Assassin. And the reason being is that you're going to overflow that magazine, you're going to get those kills very quickly, and you're going to burn that mag. You're going to use it up, you're going to go through the whole thing, and you're going to slay. You're going to be able to use that on bigger enemies. You're going to be able to use it for some light DPS if needed. It's a great perk, and there's no downside to using that with Killing Tally, where with something like Slideways, you run into the issue of you are going to fire that weapon much faster than you can ultimately reload it, even with being able to do it with Slideways. So you're not making the most out of Killing Tally. If you're going Slideways, again, I would recommend either One for All or Adagio. If you're going Envious, you could do either of those, but ultimately I recommend Killing Tally. You're going to get the most out of that magazine with that. As far as Masterworks or intrinsic frames, again, you want to focus on stability. That's just going to keep this gun in line a little bit. I do have a stability intrinsic frame on mine. I have not gotten it to 20, so it's even going to get a little bit better from there. But you saw how tight that middle of the magazine is, that kind of top and or the middle 20 to 90%, how tight that is. And that's from that stability. You can lay on that trigger and just kind of let it go, and it's going to go where you want it to be. Highly recommend stability. Again, it's a huge benefit. Handling base 49 is totally usable. Putting more handling into that, not going to change the world. And reload speed, again, reload speed is not important on a machine gun, because if you have to be reloading your machine gun is worthless. You're better off swapping to another weapon, your special, something else, or letting it handle itself later. That's why a perk like Envious is great, because it's going to reload that from 0. Or you're going to use that intrinsic trait of the rapid fire frame to get that faster reload anyway. If you're down to 20 rounds, fire them off at something and then just get the faster reload. Putting more resources into that reload speed, which is already kind of high for a machine gun, I feel, at 61. For a machine gun that's going to have that intrinsic trait at a base level, I think that's pretty good. You're dropping that to a 41 to start with extended mag, but it's still going to be a usable reload speed. And with that intrinsic, you're not going to miss 10 reload that you would get from a Masterwork. As far as how I feel about the gun, I really like Speleologist, and I really want to use it. But in a world where weapons like Choir of One exist, it's hard to find a use for a almost strictly ad clear machine gun. As fun as this gun is, making explosions, leaving pools of radial area everywhere, and just the kind of joy that brings on some level, there's the honest fact that a gun like Choir of One, especially with the stabilizing rounds, can do that with green bricks. And then you can equip a rocket launcher, a grenade launcher, a sword, something that is going to be a true DPS weapon, something you're not going to worry about until you absolutely need it. You're going to let your primary and your special do the talking. Or in a world with, again, Choir, some people are running double special. You're getting the call in the kinetic slot with Choir. Or short of that, you're running a special ammo sidearm, and that is still giving you a lot of ad clear potential. Something like a Baron Action is very effective at that. Something like a Volt Shot, Indebted Kindness, very effective at that. These special weapons are so strong at ad clear now. A lot of the recent options we've been getting, some of my favorites like Delicate Tomb, very strong at clearing ads. It's hard to look at a machine gun and say, this is what I should be using right now. This should be my focus. It's hard to commit a resource as important as my heavy slot to ad clear when you have some incredibly powerful ad clear primaries, when you have incredibly powerful ad clear specials that have multi-purpose. It's hard to commit to a heavy ammo ad clear option, especially in this current meta with stuff like hazardous propulsion, with the power of something like microcosm. It's so difficult to be like, yeah, I just want to equip a Speleologist, especially again when you have other weapons that are arguably better frames, better archetypes of machine guns that can do a similar job. They deal more damage, and they can do everything this weapon does, maybe not as fast, but just as effectively. Now, if this had that magic combination of 21% delirium, where it was overflow paired with killing tally, exceptions can start to be made, because you get that almost infinite uptime as long as you can pick up a brick of some kind. That changes the equation a little bit. We'll have to see if Bungie ever dares to do that again. But in terms of the current meta, in terms of the current machine guns that are available, if you're looking for a 900 RPM machine gun, I personally feel this is the option. This is the best one. It is the most accessible currently. If you have episode echoes, you can just farm it. It's very easy to get. It drops from the activities. It is a great machine gun. It is great at what it does. The issue is that in this current sandbox, what it does can be effectively done by so many other things, it's hard to recommend it, if that makes sense. If you guys are enjoying Speleologist, absolutely, let me know. Throw a comment. Tell me what you guys are building on it, what you're using. And please, again, just a final reminder, sponsored stream over on my Twitch this Wednesday. And I would appreciate anybody who can show some support, whether it's showing up to, watch, whether it's playing the game. I appreciate you guys so much. Appreciate the feedback you guys have been giving on these videos. And, anything else, don't hesitate to let me know. I do read the comments. I reply to as many of them as possible, even if it's sometimes late. But I appreciate you all. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you on the next one.